Hello, everybody, and welcome to coverage of YETICON Old School Event 2025. This is YETICON 4, hosted October 18th, 2025, Black Sky Brewery in Denver, Colorado. My name is Corey, member of the Rocky Mountain Yetis Old School Magic Club, host club of this event. This is a video coverage of Round 1 here at the feature table. Round 1 features Jeff Watkins and Peter Niemeyer. Both are returning veterans to the feature table stage here at YETICON. Let's take a look at what the players are rocking here today. Jeff Watkins has an interesting brew with Ashnod's Transmogrant to go with his creature package of the Mountain Yeti, and the Atog Mountain Yeti, in case you didn't know, is eroded to a 3/4 in Yeti format, so it's not vulnerable to bolt anymore. It has natural protection from white for swords, and the 3/4 puts it out of range for the bolt. The artifact package here is pretty cool because the Transmogrant allows you to respond to a couple different things on your Yeti or your Atog. You could sack it to the Atog, of course. Could respond to a Psy Blast on your Yeti. It's also nice anti-abyss tech because it turns your creature into an artifact in addition to its other types as we do that. Otherwise, we have some interesting artifact control pieces like the Relic Barrier, the white removal pieces in the Disenchant Divine Offering, swords, and the red package with lightning bolts and with Blood Moon. Let's take a look at Peter Niemeyer's deck. Peter Niemeyer has a white-blue artifact build, as you can see here. We have 4 of the Pump Knights, Order of Lightbur, 4 Onulets, a 2/2 artifact creature that gives you a couple life when it goes to the graveyard. Brass Man doesn't make a lot of appearances in Constructed Old School, so that will be a fun one. Cost 1 to untap that one. We also see the blue control package and 4 Maze of Iths here. Anson Maddox, the artist for Maze of Ith, was at this event, so very cool that Peter is rocking those. We also do see 2 Abyss in the main deck here, so let's see if that Ashnod's Transmogrant has an impact on this game. Let's go down to game number 1. Round 1, game 1 here at YETICON. Feature table at Black Sky Brewery here in Denver. Jeff on the left, Peter on the right. Peter starts off with a Plains. Jeff starts off with a Mountain and a Black Vice. Peter's going to be taking a little bit of damage. Start the game off. Peter will draw and take a look. And quickly we have a Pump Knight. That is the 2/1 Order of Lightbur. We call those the Pump Knights because you can pay 1 white to give him first strike till end of turn, or white for +1/+0. Over on Jeff's side, we have a Plateau and a Quick Swords on the Pump Knight. And follow up with an Atog. So now Jeff has a little bit more pressure on the board with both the Black Vice and an Atog. Peter's still in Black Vice range, so he does take one there in the upkeep before drawing. Looks like he did draw an Ancestral Recall. No blue source just yet. There is a Maze of Ith. Tapping 2 more white, and that is another Pump Knight. I know there's a bit of glare right there for this part of the day at this table. Apologies for that. So Jeff looking at his draw. He has an Atog on the table. Peter trying to play down below the Black Vice. And there is the Ashnod's Transmogrant. You can tap that and sack it to give a creature a +1/+1 counter. And also make it an artifact. And those both stick. That's a Relic Barrier also. On Jeff's side, can tap an artifact, tap to tap an artifact. No artifacts yet on Peter's side, although he does have the artifact creatures we saw in the deck picture before. Peter does play a Tundra there, so that is a blue source. Little bit of a stalemate in terms of the creature battlefield here. Having a potential first striker and a Maze of Ith on Peter's side is going to give him some time. Jeff has a little bit more artifact presence there with the control package of the Black Vice, the Relic Barrier, and potential artifact pump. Peter does just pass the turn. Jeff will play a Mountain. And it's going to be tricky in this board state to find profitable attacks until we can deal with some of those pieces on Peter's side. And Jeff, I believe, just says go. Peter had, I believe he was out of Black Vice range. That upkeep. Plays another land. Counting up the amount of pumps likely on the Atog side for Jeff. He'll tap a blue, and there's the Ancestral Recall, so that might put him back up into Black Vice range, unless he can power something out. He does have plenty of mana. There's 3 mana for the Onulet. That's the 2/2 artifact creature, gives you a couple life when it goes to the graveyard. Nice functional card. Very fun to see that in a constructed event here at YETICON. Jeff will draw and play a Plains. So Peter has a little bit more damage on the board than does Jeff. Peter does take a damage there in his upkeep after the Ancestral from the Black Vice, so both players keep an eye out for that. Peter, I believe, drew a Psionic Blast right there. And I see a City of Brass in his hand as well. Both players looking to kind of break the stalemate here. Tapping 4 mana, and that is a Mountain Yeti on Jeff's side. Mountain Yeti is errated to be a 3/4 in Yeti format. So it's a Mountain Walk, 3/4, and protection from white. There is 3 mana for the Psionic Blast on the Atog, not on the Mountain Yeti. And Jeff deciding not to sack a bunch of artifacts to save it. He'd have to sack a couple artifacts to keep that one alive. So he leaves that on the board, and it looks like we're tapping the Amulet in the upkeep. That's the relic barrier on Jeff's top of your screen on his left side. Here's another Maze of Ith in play. Mountain Yeti is that mountain walk, but no mountains over on Peter's side. There is a Psionic Blast targeting the Yeti, though, to get the 3/4 blocker out of the way. That would clear the path for his Pump Knights to start coming in. And that resolves. Peter takes 2, tacks in for 2. It looks like there is a Transmogrant, a Transmogrant on the Pump Knight. Just so you can see what happens. He turned the Pump Knight into an artifact, and then he Divine Offering to gain 2 life. So a bit of a 1 for 2 there, but he gained 2 life and knocked off a Pump Knight from the board. Pretty sweet play, and that's why you saw the high 5. Now here comes a Blood Moon on Jeff's side. So a very neat sequence of events there. Blood Moon is going to turn all non-basic lands into mountains. So right now those Maze of Iths are mountains. Everything's a mountain on Peter's side. He does have 1 basic Plains, but everything else is a mountain. So he only has access to white and red mana. Jeff has a little bit more control now because he can tap the Amulet. A Brass Man did come into play on Peter's side. Okay, there is another, so it looks like we pass and tap in the upkeep. Tap the Amulet in the upkeep. Things are locked down a little bit here. Peter doesn't have much to do with red mana, so he's going to come in with Brass Man. He does have plenty of artifacts, so playing through Blood Moon is not the worst thing in the world. He can play his artifact creatures just fine. And once again, looks like we are tapping the Amulet in the upkeep, keeping an eye on the cards in hand there for the players to see when Peter needs to take damage from the Black Vice. I'm guessing that's Jeff's primary strategy here, is to just keep Peter from being able to cast his spells. He can knock down lands and he can cast his artifacts, and there is a City of Brass, so that's just a mountain, so no damage on the City of Brass. There's another Amulet and attacking in for 1. Jeff will untap. Taking a look at what we have here. Both players probably still thinking about that sweet play of turning the Pump Knights into an artifact and then Divine Offering. Now, Jeff here plays a Strip Mine to strip the Plains from Peter. That's a bit of a whoopsie there because the Strip Mines come in as a mountain under a Blood Moon. But players didn't catch it there, so on we go. And tacking for 3 is Peter. Players in YETICON here are playing under kind of a modified gentleman's rule, so Jeff does have more Strip Mines than Peter because Jeff is leaving out the ungentlemanly cards from his deck, Mind Twist, Library, and Ancestral Recall. So we have a bit of a damage race here because we have Peter is attacking in for 3 every turn. He's going to start taking damage from Black Vice here pretty soon, as he's not being able to cast his spells. Trying to keep an eye on where his hand size is. There's a Mountain Yeti. Be a juicy target for a removal spell, and he is taking a little bit of damage there as another drawn land. So let's see how this race goes. Jeff's going to untap. He has a Mountain Walker now, and there are plenty of mountains to walk through on Peter's side. So we have a 3 damage Mountain Walker plus the Black Vice is going to be doing some damage in the upkeep. Peter has 3 damage on his side. I can't quite see the life totals on the players. I apologize. The camera just missed the phone that the players are using. So there's another quick reminder for Black Vice damage. So Jeff may be winning this race at this moment, especially if Peter is going to be taking 2 damage from Black Vice. So he goes to attack. And looks like that one is an Abyss he draws. So he's going to be taking a couple of damage next upkeep after the 3 from the Yeti. ATOG would be a great play here for Jeff to draw if he can get one to kind of really blast that damage through. There's 3 Mountain Walk, though. I see he has swords in Peter's hand, but he has no white sources to cast it. He'll have to draw another basic plains since his is in the graveyard, and that's it. Peter scoops it up for game number 1. The Mountain Yeti, mountain walking through that Blood Moon, does take care of things in game number 1. On we go to game number 2. After sideboard here in game 2, Peter is taking a look at his hand, and Peter is taking a mulligan, I believe, to 5 here for game 2. He's putting 2 cards on the bottom and 5 cards in the starting hand. Tough luck on that one. It's always hard to see. But anyway, here we're going to get started with a Swamp, a Soul Ring, and a Mox Jet and a Brass Man. So pretty explosive start, starting on 5. It is just 1 damage on the board. And on Jeff's side, we have a quick, I believe, Relic Barrier there. So Brass Man is likely going to be tapped. Yep. And it does cost 1 to untap it. But mana is not really a big problem on Peter's side. He's got a Soul Ring and 3 single mana sources. Jeff likely looking for some pressure here. There is a Strip Mine on his 1 dual land. And there is removal for the Brass Man. There's a basic island and a Time Twister. Well, that will certainly reset any card disadvantage. So removal for the Brass Man must not have been a Swords because you can shuffle back in. Sorry, I missed the card that blew up that Brass Man. So let's twist away. And I believe Peter did play the island right there, so he pointed to Jeff there, but likely take a look at their 7. I believe he's already had a land drop this turn. So not bad when you can mulligan to 5 and then just reset any card advantage. And now he actually has a bit of a mana advantage with the Soul Ring on the board. Both players down 1 land drop from a Strip Mine play from Jeff. Again, Jeff has, I believe, 3 Strip Mines. Peter playing 1 because I believe he has all of the moderated cards there, Library, Mind Twist, and Ancestral. So just 1 Strip Mine allowed. All right. We always say good luck on your 7. Players keep. And Jeff untaps. Okay. Let's see what Jeff has on the crackback. A fresh grip of cards. Here's a Plains. 2 Moxes. Signed by Dan Frazier. Dan Frazier was at this event, by the way, signing card. Signed a number of Moxes that day. A lot of players who show up to YETICON end up having their Moxes signed by Dan Frazier. There is another Relic Barrier. So the artifact control package continues to be pretty strong on Jeff's side. There's an ATOG, and tapping looks like the Soul Ring and the Jet. So the 2 artifacts, I bet it's a Swamp and a Plains in the middle of Peter's board. City of Brass. Peter looking at what he has. He does have a Psy Blast in hand. Jeff has plenty enough artifacts to save his ATOG if he wants to in the event of a damage-based removal, but he's going to hang on. Jeff untaps. Relic Barrier's not doing much right now because it's all just lands. Here comes the ATOG for 1. Looks like it's just 1. Here comes 4 mana, and there is the Mountain Yeti again, the 3/4 Mountain Walker. No Blood Moon, so no mountains on this side. There is a quick Psionic Blast on the Yeti before the Transmogrant comes into play to potentially save it, make it a 4/5. artifact creature. There is, I believe, a scrubland. And pass from Peter. So Jeff has ATOG and plenty of artifacts, but not quite enough for the decisive blow just yet. There is a third relic barrier. So any artifact package is likely going to be tricky for Peter to pull off with 3 relic barriers. Peter's tapping, deciding how to tap, and there's a disenchant for the third relic barrier. Nothing to tap in response, so he lets that one go. Peter will untap, leave his 2 artifact rocks. Just tap, just leave them tapped. There's a Tundra. Tapping 1, 2, counting up. Wondering if we might have the Abyss here. Trying to count up for 4. That looks like maybe an Abyss in his hand, or a Mind Twist. Looks like it's a Mind Twist in hand. Probably asking how many cards you have in hand. How much can I tap here? And if I was in Jeff's position, that's what I would be immediately thinking. We didn't see a Mind Twist in game 1, but it looks like he lets it go and says, go ahead. Decides to maybe wait. There's a Transmogrant. And an attack for 1. And there is a Hurkyl's Recall. It looks like a Hurkyl's Recall to my eye. That would bounce all of those artifacts back to Jeff's hand. That's a tough one. And Jeff is picking up his artifacts, and back to hand they go. And it looks like that happened maybe during Jeff's turn, but he might not have had to go to discard. Jeff looking at the cards in hand. Peter plays a land. Jeff, maybe did have to discard. So we maybe got a little bit ahead of ourselves in the game here. Jeff he puts a couple of artifacts in the graveyard. Peter did play a Library of Alexandria for turn. Now we are going to Mind Twist. So that was the line that Peter was looking for. Jeff's going to tap 1 and Lightning Bolt in response, and then loses the whole hand. So that was the plan. Peter was looking to see bounce everything back to hand and then Mind Twist it all away on the next turn, because he could untap. He did that on Jeff's turn, and then he could untap all of his artifact mana. So tough beat there for Jeff. Here comes a Mishra's Factory. Down on Peter's side, a Psyblast to the ATOG. And go ahead, Jeff. So now Peter, with after mulliganing to 5, now has a pretty overwhelming advantage on board. He has a library in play, but I don't believe he's near library range right now. Activating a Chaos Orb. It looks like that's a hit. And he flipped on his own Transmogrant to target the Mishra's Factory. So that's a very gentlemanly thing to do, to flip on one of your own cards and not a neighbor's card. Just in case your corner lands on top of a beautiful Winter Factory. So tapping 2 white there is another Pump Knight. That's the Order of Lightburn. And a Maze of Ith. And here comes the order. I believe he's pumping it to 3. Jeff taking 3. And we could go higher than that if he wants to tap his City of Brass. He would have access to 4 white mana, but there's 3 more for Jeff, just with a Transmogrant on the board. Can't block by itself, unfortunately. There's a Black Vice, but Peter shows off. Looks like just 1 card in hand. There's 3 more. Jeff turning his Life Turner. There's a Attempted Swords on the Pump Knight. Peter will gain a couple. All right, Peter plays a Brass Man. Not quite as aggressive as the Pump Knight, but still has the advantage. There's a Blood Moon, and in response we have the Blue Elemental Blast. That will take care of the Blood Moon and open it up for a Brass Man to get in for 1. There's another Brass Man. Maze of Ith is still online then as well without a Blood Moon. There is a Mountain Yeti. And looks like a Psyblast. Quick Psyblast for the Yeti. Peter now having 2 damage coming in. And there's an Abyss. Brassmen are immune to the Abyss. And it's not the worst thing in the world right now for Jeff because he could make a creature an artifact. So any creature he casts on his turn, he could make Abyss-proof before his next upkeep. So there's 2 Brassmen. We're going to Swords 1. Peter will gain 1. And the Abyss is just kind of hanging out, waiting there, so Jeff can't overextend with multiple creatures. But right now we're pretty close to Hellbent. There's a Strip Mine on the Maze of Ith. Paying 1 to untap the Brassman there, let us not forget. Brassman comes in for another one. There is just a land go on Jeff's side. Here in Game 2, Brassman for 1. Mishra's Factory waiting in the wings to make it 3 next turn. Looks like Jeff has 1 card in hand. He does light up the factory, attacks for 3. There's a lightning bolt on the factory. And there is a Psyblast at the top. So that is game number 2. Peter is able to take that one down after mulliganing to 5. We have a Time Twister, kind of gets us back up to 7, and then we were off to the races from there. So on we go to a decisive game number 3 in round 1 of YETICON 2025. And here we go with game 3. Which one of these decks will take it? The one with the Amulets or the one with the Mountain Yeti? Game 3 will decide it. Jeff on the left is going to have the play, and Jeff plays a Mountain. Last game, Peter had a couple of Brassmen on the battlefield, delivering all that pressure. Answers to Jeff's threats. And there is the old COP Red. Nice sideboard card coming in. That's going to be a tricky one for Jeff to deal with, but he does have a number of enchantment and artifact removal spells. And there is a Relic Barrier, tapping the Mox Pearl on the upkeep. So let's see if Jeff can rip a disenchant to protect him, or to get rid of that Circle of Protection Red and get some damage through, because a lot of his threats are the Atogs and the Mountain Yeti. On Peter's side, it's an island. And he has a Chaos Orb in hand. And he will cast that out while he has 2 mana. Chaos Orb is vulnerable, but he probably believes that any disenchants are going to be coming at the COP Red, so that that Chaos Orb, naked Chaos Orb, is protected for the time being. Activating the factory and attacking for 2. That will get through the COP Red. Papers there are the match slips being dropped off at the feature table here at YETICON. There's a Maze of Ith on Peter's side. And Jeff will untap. Jeff has another factory. Yeah, and 2 factories is interesting. If you have 2 factories that can attack, you can kind of work through Maze of Ith a little bit. So right now, Peter will untap the factory with the Maze of Ith. He does pump it, looks like, untaps it, and then will play an Atog. So he untapped it. It's activated. No combat damage, but he will have that Atog. Atog does get swords, though. Second main phase. Library of Alexandria on Peter's side. Looks like he has just a few cards in hand, though, so not currently active on the card draw ability. A Mountain from Jeff. More artifacts from Jeff. Here's 2 factories attacking. Now this is where that math comes out a little bit, because one gets untapped by the maze, you can pump the other one, and then there's a disenchant. So that's all we need. So that one was taken out of combat, retapped for pump, and then we have a disenchant on the one that was going to get through. So Maze of Ith is pretty nice, but like many things, the factories can work their way through it if they are in pairs or in bunches. Here is another Maze of Ith, going to make it even harder for Jeff to get through. Between the Circle of Protection and 2 Maze of Iths, I think combat damage is going to be tricky, unless he can get another Blood Moon on the table. Okay, tapping 2. There is the Pump Knights again, the Order of Lightburn, and a quick Lightning Bolt from Jeff. COP Red does not protect your creatures from the Lightning Bolt. So down they go. There's another Relic Barrier. And Peter has the Mox Pearl and the Chaos Orb being tapped as well. Yeah, and then right now Jeff kind of shrugs, but that's it's not a bad play to have that tapped, because you could force him to use it in his upkeep. There is a Sarah Angel, and the Chaos Orb won't be turned on until after untap. Now we're in the upkeep. I think we're activating it with one of our tapped mana. With the Relic Barriers, I believe we're going to have a flip, probably on the Angel here. That is a signed Sarah Angel from Douglas Schuler. Awesome. And let's see how Peter does on the flip. That is a direct hit. Peter kind of flipping almost a vertical style with an elbow down and the card coming right there. Right straight down from the wrist. I don't know if you'd call that an unorthodox flipping style, but definitely effective here. Here's a Mountain Yeti. It's 3/4, remember, in our errata rules. Doesn't get through the Circle of Protection. And I believe even with the Ashnod's Transmogran, it becomes an artifact in addition to its other colors. I don't think it loses the red color, I don't believe. So it gains an extra vulnerability for removal, but I don't think it removes a color for COP purposes. Both players in a draw go. Here comes another Mountain Yeti. Right now, they're both just kind of staring at that circle. The Pearl is staying tapped on Peter's side. Jeff keeping that tapped down. And it looks like, yep, Library of Alexandria is turned on after a few turns of draw go. So now we have 2 card draws per turn from Peter. Yetis as 3/4s are pretty effective blockers. Looks like we have an activation and a big swing in. Might as well make him have it. He's got 2 Maze of Iths, and he's got some protection from the COP red. He's going to go for a Swords on the Factory and untap the 2 Yeti. So he'll leave his mana up for the rest of the turn. Peter will draw 1. Activating the library, we'll draw 2. There's a Factory on Peter's side. Now with 2 Relic Barriers on Jeff's board, it's going to be hard for him to get in, for Peter to get in with the Factory. There is another big tap for a Sarah Angel. Let's see how many more. There's a Psyblast. I was wondering how many more answers Peter would have in the deck. He does have that one. We've seen a couple of Swords. And now a Psyblast. And Peter has to be thinking Angel is the biggest threat. Surprised that Jeff hasn't been able to pull a Disenchant yet for that COP red. Peter would be fairly vulnerable if we had that. There is a Strip Mine on the library. That's an altered Strip Mine. So Peter would be temporarily vulnerable to a Blood Moon and then a Disenchant. And I believe that much mana is available. Maybe if Jeff has a Disenchant, he might be waiting for that particular moment to slam them both. Blood Moon and Disenchant. And take 6 Mountain Walk. There is the Pump Knights and a Lightning Bolt. Both players able to 1-for-1 answer each other's threats here well into the middle game. Peter takes a draw. Looks like a Balance in hand. He's got a handful of cards, and the creatures are not all that scary at the moment. There is a basic Swamp that could be relevant for Blood Moon purposes. And I believe he has a basic island, and there might be a basic plains at the bottom of that land stack there. So he might not worry too much about the Blood Moon outside of the Maze of Iths. Now Jeff is keeping the white and the blue mana untapped. I can't see if there is an Abyss in the hand of Peter. That would clean up those Yetis. Brass Man gets lightning bolted. Okay, there's a white mana and another Atog. Still not getting through the COP red. Is Jeff, so both players continue to kind of look each other down here in this middle game. Mana no longer a problem for either player. And again, even with the Blood Moon, I believe Peter would have access to all of his colors. And there is a balance in hand, so if things get too out of control and he takes a big swing, likely Jeff would have to have lethal or close to it. Because if that COP goes away, those creatures are likely to be balanced away immediately. Yeah, there is a basic plains there. Okay, double Psy Blast. The old take 8 from Peter, and Peter will untap. I believe that's an Amulet he just drew. Will the Amulet be the decider here? Plenty of blockers on Jeff's side, and no reason right now to tap them in. Peter will tap 2, and there is balance. So now might be the opportunity to play out the Amulet, or maybe another Pump Knight if he has one. So clear out those creatures, and he will discard the Amulet to hand size for the balance. Now we're counting up damage here. And lands. Figuring out how many lands to keep. Peter losing a handful of lands. Looks like Jeff has 5 lands, so yep, Peter's going down to 5 lands. And they're not forgetting to count those Maze of Iths that sometimes gets missed in balance calculations. Some of those utility lands we sometimes forget are land type. Okay, there is a strip mine on one of those Maze of Ith. Remember, Jeff does have more than one strip mine because of our unique gentleman rule variation. By leaving out some of the ungentlemanly cards, he can have more slots for a strip mine. More information on the rule set in the link below the video if you're curious. Okay, there is an attack with the factory, I believe. And tapping down. Okay, he will tap down 1 Mox and leave 1 for the factory. So if it gets activated, it's at a quick tap. There's a Brass Man, also vulnerable to the Relic Barrier. I believe by this point in this game, my round had finished, and I was standing behind the players here watching the end of this match. For a little inside baseball. There's an Atog. Can we get through that circle? Tap the Brass Man, and Peter is declining to untap. You have to pay 1 to untap in your upkeep. And here comes the Abyss. That's going to resolve, and that Atog will go screaming into the Abyss. And there it goes. And so for the foreseeable future, we're going to have Atogs, Yetis. Nothing's going to survive into the next upkeep. Peter starting to kind of grab more firm control, and Jeff not finding the removal pieces that he'd like to. Earlier in the game, removing that COP red could have turned it for Jeff, but not being able to rip a disenchant or waiting for a more opportune time to play one. Peter taps 2. There is a disenchant on the untapped Relic Barrier. What will he tap in response? It's a Mox, and now we are open for an attack for 2. There's a Divine Offering by the factory. Divine Offering does not take care of enchantments, but it does take care of artifacts. No life gain because you gain life equal to the casting cost. And of course, it's 0. There is an Ashnod's Transmogrant. Now, that could help a creature survive the Abyss. I believe the Abyss targets a non-artifact creature. So even if he gives it artifact and red for a Mountain Yeti, say, that can dodge the Abyss, I believe. So does he have a creature? Does he have a creature threat? Maze of Ith will still keep it home, but he could keep it around. I'm not sure how many Sarah Angels off the top of my head Jeff had. There is our custom game promo card strip mine, the Gentleman's Club strip mine. It was the one of the custom cards for the tournament. There we finally have the disenchant for the COP red. Let's see if it is too little too late. Does Jeff have a follow-up? Another Transmogrant, so that will keep another creature alive. Remember, you can't stack them because you can only use the Transmogrant on a non-artifact creature. So once you've used one to give a counter, you can't use another one. You also can't use it on a factory, say, because that's already an artifact creature. So another Lightning Bolt. Both players have, these decks are quite evenly matched in these terms of they have basically the perfect 1-for-1 removal on both strategies. The artifacts, the disenchants, the divine offerings. We have swords, bolts, Psyblast all being used. There is, what's happening there is a Transmogrant being used on the Yeti and a Psyblast in response before it gets the counter. I believe he could have maybe sacrificed the second one to keep that around, and then maybe the first one would have been an illegal target. I'd have to think through that one, because the first one wouldn't have resolved yet to make it an artifact. I believe then the second one would have failed on the stack. There is an attempted Blood Moon and then a Blue Blast. Untap. For Jeff, there is another Relic Barrier. I believe that's number 3 or 4. Relic Barrier 3 or 4. And double disenchant on those. So now we can try to finally start to get some damage through. Right now it's just one Brass Man for 1. Do we have an artifact follow-up? There is a Pump Knight, and they are protection from black, so safe from the Abyss, because the Abyss does target. So it's a target of that player's choice. There is a Strip Mine on a Maze of Ith, but we are in tough straits here for Jeff with that much pressure on the board. Because we have enough white mana to pump it at least once. I believe we have enough to pump it twice. We could make it 4. We could attack for 5 if he wishes to. He's tapping 4, and I believe that's what he did. So that would be an attack for 5. 4 from the Knight, 1 more from the Brass Man. Jeff wondering what he can draw to take care of some of this pressure. I'm not sure if Jeff has a balance in his deck or sideboard without looking. There's a Sarah Angel, and with the Transmogrant, the Sarah can stick around. Sarah makes a great blocker. However, the Maze of Ith will make it hard for him to attack in with the Sarah. And with 1 more white mana, Peter can make his Knight a 4-1 first strike. Right now, I believe he just has enough to make it a 4-1. He can't make it a 4-1 and first strike. He is attacking in with everything. Okay, so now we have a Transmogrant. So the Sarah Angel is now going to be a 5/5 flying artifact white creature. And Jeff helpfully putting the 5 die on the Sarah Angel. She is going to block the Knights, and not enough white mana to pump it to profitably trade. Let's see if there is a follow-up removal spell, though. Nope, it's an Onulet. Okay, so Jeff has a pretty potent attacker now. If he could get a Blood Moon or 1 more Strip Mine for that Maze of Ith. Yep. So we're going to attack with the Sarah Angel. It gets untapped and removed. Yeah, the creature does not have to be tapped. It just has to be attacking to have the untap effect work for Maze of Ith, for those keeping track at home. So it untaps the creature. Even if the creature is already untapped, it just has to be attacking. So Peter taking a look now with a huge blocker like that on the board. He looks like he's just going to throw in. He's going to block the Onulet, and there we have the gain 2 from the Onulet going to the graveyard. So achievement unlocked there, and Jeff then also just shrugs and says, not much else I can do. Players are going to shake hands, and that is going to be it for round 1. Peter, congrats, taking this one 2-1 with the Abyss Onulet Brassman combo. Good to see a Brassman on the board for the end of Game 3 here in round 1. So as we go on to round 2 in YETICON, we'll enjoy 5 more rounds on this one. I'll have them all in a playlist. Do check the description down below for a link to the full playlist, and I'll have a link to the actual event websites. You can read more about our rule set. But until then, this is Corey signing off.